Hello, I'm Fuyao. Welcome to the quest for unsolved mysteries. Today, we're going to introduce Dolores, the master of hypnosis, who had an interesting conversation with Nostradamus, the 16th century French prophet. Dolores found the great prophet through her hypnotized clients. Different clients had different ways of contacting the prophet, the most peculiar of which was that of John the astrologer, because he found Nostradamus through the mysterious Akashic Records of the universe. The Akashic Records. The Akashic Records are the legendary place where the history of the universe is kept. Those who believe in the Akashic Records believe that they exist in a spiritual dimension. It's a coded record of everything in the universe, past, present, and even future. Whoever reads these codes can get the information he wants about the universe. Although so far, no scientist has been able to prove the existence of the Akashic Records. But many people with supernormal capabilities have said that they have accessed the Akashic Records and obtained the information they wanted. The American prophet Edgar Cayce is one of them. But the hypnotized client we're talking about today, astrologer John, he doesn't have any special powers. He just knew that he was in a trance, entered into a brightly lit library. Psychic library. The library was huge and the whole building seemed to be made of gold, silver, and precious stones. The gems emitted a beautiful light. This light was the source of illumination for the entire library. That's why one can read books here without any difficulty. The room was filled with books and scrolls. There were manuscripts of all kinds on the shelves. The air was filled with beautiful music. People were walking around in groups. Everyone was dressed in beautiful robes, and their clothes looked transparent. But inside they were glistening with halo. John was marveling at the sight. Suddenly a man greeted him warmly, asking him if he needed any help. It turns out that this is the administrator of the spiritual library. He was also glowing with light. John was quite amused. He said, "I'd like to see a time warp of what's happening on Earth." He didn't expect the administrator to say yes so quickly. "Sure, you come with me. Let's go to the tapestry room." Lifelines on tapestries. The tapestry room is a very beautiful room. The roof is very high. There was a wonderful aroma in the air. There's a huge tapestry on the wall. It's made of metal threads of various colors. It looked magnificent. But there was one odd thing to John. He noticed that every wire seemed to be alive. They were all fluctuating. Some of them sparkled as they fluctuated, and others were a little dull. But they also seemed to be alive. The janitor said, "You're right to say it's alive, because every life has a thread in this tapestry." The tapestry is a perfect illustration of how every life is intertwined. It represents the absolute oneness of mankind. This means that all of humanity is one, and it's made up of many parts. Each part cannot exist without the other. They're all intertwined and interacting with each other. And then he goes on to say that this tapestry is the Akashic Records, although all life has a thread in this tapestry. But only a higher beings can understand the concept of this tapestry and be able to touch it. Sometimes there are artists on Earth, like those who specialize in painting, those who specialize in sculpture. They can also come here through meditation, and the tapestry is the place that inspires them. So how did John find Nostradamus through this tapestry? Find Nostradamus. The janitor said, "You find his thread and follow him through the tapestry." And obviously, it didn't take John long to find Nostradamus' thread. He said it was a bright, shiny gold thread. He followed it quickly through the tapestry. It felt like flying. The janitor said, "Go ahead. I'll be here to watch. I'll call you if anything happens." So John was soon in Nostradamus' study. In the mirror in the room, he saw himself transformed into a glittering spirit of energy, wearing robes of rainbow colors. Nostradamus seemed to know he was coming. "Welcome, elf from the future." Doesn't that sound strange to anyone? So many tangled lifelines. How did John find Nostradamus' thread so easily? A past life with a prophet. Dolores said it was all destiny. John owed Nostradamus something in his past life. So in this life, he had to find him and repay the debt. It turns out that during a hypnosis experiment for years ago, John saw his past life connection with Nostradamus. In that life, he was born in Germany. His name was Franz Weber. He was one of Hitler's astrologers. With his help, the German government published a German edition of Nostradamus' prophecies, but they changed some of the content. They said it was to suit the needs of the government at the time. And then, they went around saying, "Look, Nostradamus predicted the rise of Germany. He said that Paris would fall soon. We'll control the whole continent. We're going to be an empire for 1,000 years." Nostradamus did predict Hitler and the rise of Germany. Even Hitler's name was given in the anagram Hister. However, he also predicted Germany's defeat and Hitler's end. He even called Hitler the Antichrist. The term Antichrist comes from the Bible. It's considered to be a self-proclaimed savior, but is actually a man who is a scourge upon the earth. And that's not something that's going to be in the propaganda. But John said that he was fooled by their false propaganda. So when he realized the truth and saw the cruelty of their persecution of the Jews, he was very sorry for what he had done and tried to remedy the situation. He joined a program to assassinate Hitler, attempting to assassinate Hitler during a conference. Unfortunately, the plan didn't work. He was shot in the heart and died. Bizarrely, in this life, when John had his chest X-rayed, John's chest X-ray photo showed a small hole in his sternum. The doctors couldn't figure it out, said it was probably a birth defect. And John himself felt that it was somehow related to his past life, including his ability to speak fluent German. And he's a self-starter in many astrological matters. It's all related to his past life. Dolores exclaimed that he misinterpreted the prophecies and helped evildoer to destroy the world. He owed Nostradamus a debt. However, in this life, fate has given him a chance to help Dolores interpret the prophecies in a positive way. It's kind of a positive way to pay his debt, because there's a dangerous Antichrist like Hitler coming up again. Antichrist. Nostradamus showed John this Antichrist. Nostradamus gave John an image of this Antichrist at the time of their conversation. He's a young man with a black beard. He's a dark-skinned, tall, clean-cut. He's eating a hand-me-down meal with a group of men in Arab dress. These men are supporters of the young man. The young man is accompanied by a spiritual advisor. This man looks terrifying. His eyes are like daggers, burning with the flame of hatred. It seemed to concentrate all the negative energies of the universe. Nostradamus said that the young man inherited the evil of his mentor after his death and became the Antichrist. And Nostradamus, in interpreting other prophecies, gave more information about the Antichrist. He was born in Saudi Arabia. His father was wealthy. His mother was a commoner. His father died when he was young and left him a large inheritance. And that was one of the sources of his funding. He doesn't have nuclear weapons, but he's been able to destabilize the Western century. However, Nostradamus, for all his talk, he never revealed who this man was or what his name was. And today, in the year 2023, all of this information makes it easy to recall. The man behind the 9/11 attacks in New York City, the infamous Al-Qaeda founder, Osama bin Laden. Al-Qaeda was founded in 1988. It emerged on the international scene around 1992. Dolores published a book about these hypnotic interviews in 1989. Bin Laden was still unknown to the world, so Dolores couldn't figure out who this man really was. But looking back 24 years later, Nostradamus really did predict Bin Laden's emergence. However, if this Antichrist is really Bin Laden, Nostradamus' later prophecies don't seem to work, because he said that the Antichrist would later drag the world into a major war. A lot of people die. France will be divided. Europe will be subjugated. The church will be under his control. And Asia will suffer. However, the resistance is also strong. He will eventually be subdued and die in a natural disaster. He said that Ben's last days was described in the 49th prophetic verse in chapter 8. Saturn in Taurus, Mercury in Aquarius, Mars in Sagittarius. On February 6th, death will come. The Sardinians in Bruges will make a great breakthrough. The barbarian leader will die on the Red Bridge. Nostradamus says he sees a situation. The Antichrist and his army are ready to attack. This will be the last battle between mankind and him. And yet, at that very moment, the Earth's poles shift, the continents drift, and the floods begin to rise. On the Antichrist's camp, all the airplanes, ships, and vehicles were swallowed up by the earthquake and tsunami. When he was swept away by the flood, he fell to his knees. And he said, "This is going to happen at the beginning of the 21st century." And this disaster was a topic that Nostradamus took very seriously in his interviews. He's mentioned it in many of his poems. He says that the North Pole will be displaced to Siberia, and the South Pole would fall in the south of South America. And along with that, the huge ice caps at the poles would be melting rapidly. In many places, the land below 1,000 meters will be flooded. Earthquakes continue to occur. Continents begin to drift. India will be submerged at the foot of the Himalayas. Europe breaks up into islands. Russia's climate gets colder. It's going to be the new North Pole. China's coasts are hit hard. The Americas are no better. The Great Lakes are pouring in. The Mississippi River is surging. The Gulf of Mexico is inundated with tidal waves. Washington, D.C. will disappear. A vast expanse of land will be reduced to a few islands of varying sizes. Floods have swept away most of the Earth's population, and what's left of the people are fighting over what little food, clean water, and shelter they have. In short, it's a disaster. However, is this really going to happen? The prophecy didn't work. In real history, Bin Laden has carried out some terrorist acts and caused a lot of trouble for the Western world. But he hasn't become a big deal, not to the point of disrupting the world. After the 9/11 he went into hiding for 10 years. Finally, the U.S. Army found him in Pakistan. That was in 2011. And the timing? Nostradamus wasn't far off. He was buried at sea. Bin Laden was swept away by the waves. Nostradamus was pretty right about that. However, before and after that, the world was quiet. There was no sign of the great flood that was predicted. Are the prophets who wrote these prophecies just kidding us? As for the fact that prophecies don't always come true, Nostradamus himself knew it very well. He said that he did see many visions of the future, a lot of natural and man-made disasters. But this is only a part of the landscape of time. There are many timelines in this landscape. Each of these timelines leads to a future. There are many possibilities for the future that may or may not become reality. And it's really up to people to choose. He said, for the future Earth, the last decade of the 20th century is very important. That's when there was a massive movement of people all over the world. People began to recognize the divinity within, recognizing the grandeur of the universe that we live in. They realized that as human beings, they had a godlike responsibility to take care of and to create things that are kind, that are helpful, that are caring. People are beginning to wake up, and they realize that peace begins in the heart of the individual. Nostradamus said that this decade was one of the most critical moments. It's a defining moment. Looking back from 2023, do you think if Nostradamus' prophecy is not true? Or is that we humans have made a good choice in the critical decade? Well, that's all for today. I'll read you a quote at the end. This is an excerpt from a letter written by Nostradamus to his king. The letter says that before the new millennium is complete, the beings in the heavens have been watching the change. In a space on the eighth heavenly plane, the Almighty Divine has completed the revolution. At that time, the constellations will return to their places. This will bring stability to the earth. However, it all depends on His will. Unsolved mysteries. I'll see you next time.